The stars trembled as the message spread across the galaxy. Every ship, every station, every world with communication equipment received the same broadcast. The signal was powerful, cutting through all other transmissions like a knife through paper. Commander Hyun-woo sat in his chair on the bridge of the reconnaissance ship Dauntless. His dark eyes stared at the main screen as strange symbols appeared, then changed into words he could understand. The translation system worked perfectly, but the message made his blood run cold. "People of the galaxy," the voice began. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, like music made of lightning. "We are the Velthari. We are your gods. We have watched you from the void between stars. We have seen your struggles, your wars, your pain. Now we come to bring you peace." The screen showed images of beings that looked like living light. They moved through space without ships, their bodies glowing with inner fire. They walked on planets without breathing masks, their feet never touching the ground. They spoke to crowds of alien creatures who fell to their knees in worship. "For too long, you have lived without guidance," the voice continued. "You have fought each other like animals. You have destroyed your worlds with your greed. You have reached for the stars but forgotten your place in the universe. This ends now." Hyun-woo watched as world after world surrendered. The Zephyrians, with their blue skin and 4 arms, threw down their weapons and built temples. The rock-like granite people carved statues from their own bodies. The gas-breathing whisper folk sang songs of praise that could be heard across solar systems. "We offer you a choice," the voice said. "Kneel before us and know peace. Worship us and know prosperity. Serve us and know purpose. We will guide you to greatness. We will protect you from yourselves. We will be the gods you have always needed. The Eye." Images showed cities being rebuilt by divine power, sick aliens being healed by a touch, barren worlds blooming with life under the Velthari's blessing. It looked like paradise, but something about it made Hyun-woo's stomach twist. "Those who refuse our gift will face our judgment." The voice turned cold as space itself. "We are patient, but we are not weak. We are loving, but we are not foolish. Submit willingly, or be forced to submit. The choice is yours, but the outcome is certain. We are gods. You are not." The transmission showed what happened to those who said no. A planet turned to glass in seconds. A space fleet dissolved like sugar in rain. Billions of lives ended with a gesture from beings who claimed to love their children. Lieutenant Ji Young turned from her console, her face pale. "Sir, we're getting reports from across human space. Every colony, every ship, every outpost received this message." "What about Earth?" Hyun-woo asked. "They got it too. The Velthari sent a special message just for us." Ji Young's hands shook as she played the recording. The screen showed one of the glowing beings, taller than the others, with light that burned brighter. When it spoke, its voice carried the weight of judgment. "Humans of Earth," it said, "you are young and foolish. You have spread through space like a virus, taking what is not yours. You fight constantly. You question everything. You refuse to learn your place. This will change." The being raised its hand, and stars moved in the background. "We know your history. We know your wars. We know your pride. We know you think you are special. You are not. You are children playing with fire, and we are here to take the matches away. You have 3 of your days to surrender. Send your leaders to kneel before us. Accept our rule. Become our servants. Do this, and you will be allowed to live." Refuse, and you will join the dead worlds we have created. We are merciful, but our mercy has limits. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. The crew of the Dauntless looked at each other, with expressions ranging from fear to anger to disbelief. 3 days, Chief Engineer Taemin said from his station. They give us 3 days to give up everything our species has worked for. Sir, Ji Young said, we're receiving responses from human colonies. Most are asking for orders. Some are scared. A few are... She paused. A few are angry. Hyunwoo stood and walked to the main screen. He could see other ships in the distance, human vessels that had also received the message. He wondered what their crews were thinking. He wondered what Earth was planning. Any word from command? He asked. Nothing yet, sir, but I'm picking up chatter on the emergency channels. Military units are moving. The defense fleet is mobilizing. Hyunwoo nodded. He had served in the Earth military for 15 years. He had fought pirates and rebels and hostile aliens, but he had never faced beings who claimed to be gods. Sir, came a voice from the communication station. I'm monitoring alien frequencies. The surrender messages are coming in fast. Entire species are giving up without a fight. They're worshipping these things. On the side screens, more images appeared. The Velthari landing on world after world, millions of aliens bowing down, building shrines, offering gifts. The scenes looked peaceful, but Hyunwoo saw the fear in the aliens' eyes. This was not love or faith. This was terror dressed up as devotion. Look at that, Taemin pointed to one screen. They're not even fighting. These species have fleets, armies, weapons that could crack planets, but they see these glowing beings and just give up. Maybe they know something we don't, Ji Young suggested quietly. Or maybe, Hyunwoo said, they've forgotten something we haven't. He thought about human history, about all the times someone had claimed to speak for the gods, about all the times humans had been told to kneel, to submit, to accept their place, about all the times humans had said no. Sir, incoming transmission from Earth Command, the communications officer announced. Admiral So Young's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired, but determined. Behind her, Hyunwoo could see the bustle of a command center at war. All ships. This is Admiral So Young. You've all seen the Velthari ultimatum. Earth's response is simple. We do not kneel to false gods. We do not surrender to bullies with fancy light shows. And we do not abandon our freedom because someone claims to be divine. Hyunwoo felt a smile tug at his lips. This was the response he had hoped for. The Velthari want to rule us, the Admiral continued. They want us to worship them. They want us to give up everything that makes us human. They've made one mistake, though. They assume we're like every other species they've conquered. They assume we'll be impressed by their power and terrified by their threats. The Admiral leaned forward. They're about to learn that humans don't impress easily, and we get very dangerous when someone tries to scare us into submission. All ships return to base. We have gods to fight. The transmission ended. Around the bridge, the crew began to smile. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of humans who had been challenged and were ready to accept. You heard the Admiral, Hyunwoo said. Set course for Earth. Best speed. Aye, sir, came the response from multiple stations. As the Dauntless turned toward home, Hyunwoo looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, beings who thought were gods were preparing to punish humanity for its defiance. They expected humans to break like every other species had broken. They were about to discover that humans had a very different relationship with the divine, and it usually involved telling gods exactly where they could put their demands for worship. The United Earth Defense Council chamber buzzed with tension. Representatives from every human colony, military leaders, scientists, and politicians filled the seats. At the center, Admiral So Young stood before a massive holographic display, showing the galaxy. Red dots marked worlds that had already surrendered to the Velthari. There were thousands of them. "Gentlemen, ladies," Admiral So Young began, "we face an enemy that has conquered half the galaxy in less than a week. They claim to be gods. Every species we've contacted has surrendered without firing a shot." Captain Min Ho, commander of the Defense Fleet's heavy cruiser squadron, raised his hand. "Admiral, what makes them so powerful? How do they make entire civilizations surrender so quickly?" "That's what we're here to find out," So Young replied. She gestured, and the display changed to show recordings of Velthari appearances. "Dr. Boram has been studying their broadcasts. Doctor?" Dr. Boram stood from her seat in the front row. She was young for a xenobiologist, but her work studying alien technology had earned her respect throughout human space. Her black hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and her lab coat was stained with coffee and chemical burns. "The Velthari present themselves as beings of pure energy," she began. "They appear to walk through walls, fly without ships, and manipulate matter with thought alone. To most species, this looks like divine power." "But not to us?" asked General Chang Su, head of Earth's ground forces. "No, sir. To us, it looks like very advanced technology." Boram smiled slightly. "I've run analysis on every piece of footage we have. What they're doing isn't magic. It's science we don't understand yet." She pressed a button, and the display zoomed in on a Velthari figure. "Look here. When they phase through walls, there's a slight distortion around their bodies. That suggests they're using some kind of quantum manipulation to alter their molecular structure temporarily." "And the flying?" Captain Min Ho asked. "Anti-gravity technology. We can see the gravitational lensing effect if we look carefully. They're not defying physics. They're just using physics we haven't mastered yet." Representative Park from the Luna colony leaned forward. "But even if it's just advanced technology, it's still incredibly powerful. How do we fight something that can walk through our walls and turn our weapons off with a thought?" Engineer Tae-jin stepped forward from where he had been standing against the wall. He was a big man with scarred hands from years of working with dangerous machinery. "We fight it the same way we fight any technology, sir. We figure out how it works, and then we build something to counter it." Admiral So Young nodded. "Tae-jin has been working with our weapons research teams. What do you have for us?" "Well," Tae-jin scratched his beard, "the thing about advanced technology is that it usually has weaknesses. The more complex something is, the more ways it can break. If these Velthari are using quantum manipulation and energy projection, they're probably vulnerable to electromagnetic interference." "EMP weapons?" General Chang Su asked. "Among other things. I've been designing some new toys that might give these false gods a surprise." Tae-jin's grin was not pleasant. "But we'll need time to build them." "How much time?" So Young asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3, for the first prototypes." "We may not have 2 weeks," Representative Kim from the Mars colony said nervously. "The Velthari said 3 days. That was yesterday." "Then we buy time," Captain Min Ho said firmly. "My ships are ready to engage. We can't win, but we can show them that humans don't roll over when someone threatens us." Admiral So Young looked around the room. "Is there anyone here who thinks we should surrender?" Silence filled the chamber. Then, slowly, Representative Chen from the Titan mining station stood up. Admiral, I've seen the recordings of what happens to worlds that resist, billions dead in minutes. Are we really going to risk the entire human race on pride? No, So Young said quietly. We're going to risk it on principle. The principle that free people don't kneel to tyrants, no matter what fancy tricks they can do. Dr. Boram spoke up again. There's something else. I've been studying the psychological profiles of the species that surrendered. Most of them have histories of religious worship, of believing in supernatural beings. They see the Velthari's technology and immediately think gods, because that's how their minds work. And humans? Representative Park asked. Humans have a different history. We've always questioned authority. We've had thousands of religions, but we've also had just as many skeptics. When a human sees someone claiming to be a god, the first thing we do is ask for proof. The second thing we do is figure out how to test that proof. Captain Minho laughed, grimly. And the third thing we do is rebel against them, even if they are gods. Especially if they are gods, General Chang-Su added. Humans have never liked being told what to do by anyone, divine or otherwise. Admiral So Young walked to the center of the room. The Velthari have made a mistake. They assume we're like every other species they've conquered. They think that if they show us their power, we'll be afraid. They think that if they threaten us, we'll submit. She paused, looking around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. They're about to learn that threatening humans is the best way to make us angry. And angry humans are the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. What are your orders, Admiral? Captain Minho asked. Captain, take your squadron to the edge of the Sol system. If the Velthari come calling, give them a proper human welcome. Dr. Boram, I want a full analysis of their technology. Find me. Weaknesses. Taejin, start building those weapons. I want options. And if they demand immediate surrender? Representative Chen asked. Admiral So Young's smile was cold as space. Tell them that humans don't do immediate anything. We're stubborn. That way. If they want our surrender, they can come and take it, but they should know that we bite back. As the council dispersed, people began moving with purpose. Captain Minho headed to his ships, already planning formations and tactics. Dr. Boram returned to her lab, her mind racing with theories about Velthari technology. Taejin went to the weapons research facility, where teams of engineers were already working around the clock. In her office overlooking Earth's capital, Admiral So Young stood at the window watching ships launch from orbital platforms. The defense fleet was small compared to the vast armadas that other species commanded, but each ship was crewed by humans who had volunteered to fight rather than surrender. Her aide, Lieutenant Huan, entered with a stack of reports. Admiral, we're getting messages from human colonies across space. They all want to know what the plan is. Tell them the plan is simple, Lieutenant. We're going to show these Velthari that humans don't worship anyone. Not kings, not emperors, and certainly not alien tourists with light shows. And if we lose? So Young turned from the window. Then we lose fighting, not kneeling, and maybe, just maybe, we'll bloody their noses enough that the next species they threaten will remember. That gods can bleed. Lieutenant Huan saluted and left. So Young returned to the window, watching her ships prepare for war. She thought about the Velthari, somewhere out there among the stars, probably confident that humanity would break like all the others. They were about to discover that humans had spent their entire history fighting gods, questioning prophets, and refusing to accept that anyone was their natural superior. The Velthari claimed to be divine. So Young looked forward to proving them wrong. The edge of the Sol system was quiet except for the steady hum of engines and the occasional beep of sensors. Captain Junseo stood on the bridge of the frigate Defiance, watching the empty space ahead. His ship was small compared to the heavy cruisers behind him, but it had been chosen for this moment because it was fast and its captain was known for saying exactly what he thought. "Contact!" called out Sensor Officer Kim from her station. "Multiple objects approaching from the direction of Alpha Centauri. Configuration unknown." Junseo moved to look at her screen. What he saw made him frown. The sensors showed shapes that seemed to shift and change, sometimes solid, sometimes appearing to be made of pure energy. They moved without visible engines, gliding through space like ghosts. "How many?" he asked. 12? No, 15. "Sir, the count keeps changing. It's like they're phasing in and out of our reality. Or they want us to think they are," Junseo muttered. "Communications. Open a channel." "Channel open, sir." "Approaching vessels, this is Captain Junseo of the United Earth Frigate Defiance. You are entering human space. Please state your intentions." The response came immediately, but not through the communication system. A figure simply appeared on the bridge, standing in the center like it had always been there. The bridge crew reached for their weapons, but Junseo held up a hand to stop them. The figure was tall and graceful, glowing with an inner light that made it difficult to look at directly. When it moved, trails of light followed, and when it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I am High Celestial Nyamoth of the Velthari," the being announced. "I speak for the Divine Council. I bring the word of gods to this lesser species." Junseo studied the figure calmly. "Nice entrance, very dramatic. But this is still my bridge, so I'll ask again. What do you want?" Nyamoth seemed taken aback by the lack of awe in Junseo's voice. "You should be on your knees, mortal. You stand before divinity itself." "I stand on my own bridge, talking to someone who showed up uninvited," Junseo replied. "I don't kneel to anyone I haven't been properly introduced to, and I haven't seen any ID yet." The glowing being raised its hand, and energy crackled around its fingers. "I am Nyamoth, the eternal bringer of light, shepherd of the void. I have existed since before your son was born. I have guided civilizations to greatness and cast down those who defied divine will. Entire species worship my name." "Congratulations," Junseo said dryly. "I once got a standing ovation at a karaoke bar, but I don't expect aliens to bow to me for it." Several of the bridge crew struggled not to smile. Nyamoth's glow intensified, clearly not used to this kind of response. "Your species was given 3 days to surrender," the Velthari continued. "That time has passed. I am here to accept your submission before my patience runs out." Junseo walked closer to the glowing figure, studying it with the same expression he might use to examine a new piece of equipment. "Let me understand this. You want us to surrender to you because you're gods." "We are gods," Nyamoth said firmly. "Says who? Says every civilization we have enlightened. Says the cosmic order itself. Says the power that flows through us." Junseo nodded thoughtfully. "Okay, but here's the thing. We've dealt with people claiming to be gods before. It never ends well for them." Nyamoth gestured, and suddenly the space around the ship filled with light. A massive asteroid tumbled past in the distance, and the Velthari pointed at it. Energy lanced out from her finger, and the asteroid simply ceased to exist, turned to atomic dust in an instant. "Behold divine power," Nyamoth declared. This is what awaits those who defy us. The bridge crew watched the display with interest rather than terror. Lieutenant Yun-ji, the tactical officer, was already analyzing the energy readings. "Nice particle beam," she called out. "Very focused. Probably using controlled fusion reaction to generate the destructive force." Jun Seo nodded. "Impressive technology. Now let us show you ours." He turned to his weapons officer. "Mr. Park, please demonstrate our particle cannon on that debris field." "Yes, sir." The Defiance's main gun swiveled and fired. A beam of coherent energy struck another asteroid, vaporizing it just as completely as the Velthari weapon had. "Huh," Jun Seo said casually. "Looks like we're gods, too. Who knew?" Nyamoth's glow flickered. This was clearly not going according to plan. You dare mock the divine?" "I dare question anyone who demands worship without earning it," Jun Seo replied. "Look, I'm sure you're very powerful. I'm sure you've got technology that can do amazing things, but that doesn't make you gods. That makes you aliens with advanced science. We have brought peace to 1,000 worlds by threatening to destroy them if they didn't surrender. That's not peace, that's conquest, with better marketing." Communications Officer Yang spoke up from his station. "Sir, I'm detecting more Velthari vessels approaching. Large ones." Jun Seo looked at Nyamoth. "Calling for backup already? That doesn't seem very godlike." "You will learn respect," the Velthari said coldly. "My fleet will teach you the price of defying divine will." "Your fleet is welcome to try," Jun Seo said. "But let me give you some free advice first. Every species you've conquered so far probably believed in gods before you showed up. They had religion, faith, supernatural thinking. When they saw your light show, they thought divine beings, because that's how their minds work." He gestured around his bridge. "Humans are different. When we see someone claiming to be a god, we don't think about worship. We think about rebellion. It's what we do. It's what we've always done." Nyamoth's form began to fade as she prepared to leave. "Your arrogance will be your downfall, mortal. When my fleet arrives, you will beg for the mercy you refuse today." "Maybe," Jun Seo said, "but we'll do our begging on our feet, not on our knees." The Velthari vanished, leaving only a faint shimmer in the air where she had stood. Lieutenant Aeon-ji looked up from her console. "Sir, I got some interesting readings during her visit. Whatever that transportation method is, it uses a lot of energy and leaves a distinctive signature. Good work. Send that data to Fleet Command. If we can track them, we can target them." "Sir," Communications Officer Yang said, "Admiral So Young is requesting a status report. Tell the Admiral that we've made first contact with the Velthari. They're powerful, they're arrogant, and they're definitely not gods. Also tell her they're bringing friends and they're not happy with us." "Should we withdraw, sir?" asked Lieutenant Park from the weapons station. Jun Seo looked out at the approaching Velthari fleet, visible now as points of moving light against the stars. "No, Lieutenant. We're going to stay right here and show these false gods what happens when mortals refuse to be impressed." He opened a channel to the other human ships. "All vessels. This is Captain Jun Seo. The Velthari have arrived and they're just as arrogant as advertised. They think their light show makes them divine. They think their threats will make us surrender." He paused, watching the enemy fleet grow larger on the screen. "Let's show them that humans don't surrender to bullies, no matter how fancy their costumes are. And let's teach them that when you threaten free people, you'd better be prepared for a fight." The human ships moved into formation, small and dark against the approaching wall of light. The Velthari expected fear and submission. Instead, they were about to encounter something that had brought down kings and emperors throughout human history: the simple refusal to kneel. Lieutenant Eunji's fingers danced across her tactical console as the Velthari fleet approached. Her screens filled with data streams, energy readings, and structural analysis reports. What she was seeing made her eyes widen with excitement, rather than fear. "Captain," she called out to Junseo, "you need to see this." Junseo moved to her station, studying the scrolling information. "What am I looking at, Lieutenant?" "They're ships, sir. They're not what they appear to be." Eunji highlighted sections of her scan results. "Look at this. Those hulls that seem to be made of energy, they're actually biological tissue with a metallic framework underneath. The glowing effect comes from bioluminescent bacteria coating the surface." "Biological ships?" "Yes, sir, but that's not the interesting part. Watch this." She switched to thermal imaging, and the Velthari vessels suddenly looked very different. Instead of glowing divine chariots, they appeared as dark, organic shapes with heat signatures that showed internal corridors, power systems, and crew compartments. "They're using some kind of optical camouflage system," Eunji continued. "Probably projecting holographic fields to make their ships look ethereal and godlike. But underneath, they're just advanced bioships." Captain Junseo smiled grimly. "So the Divine Fleet is running a light show to impress the locals. What else can you tell me?" "Their weapon systems appear to be plasma-based, but they're using the same camouflage technology to make the energy beams look like divine lightning. And sir, their ships are self-repairing, but that just means they have good nanotechnology, not divine blessing." "Outstanding work, Lieutenant. Send this data to all human ships immediately." Across the human fleet, similar discoveries were being made. On the cruiser Determination, sensor specialist Kyung-ho was tracking the individual Velthari crew members. "Commander, the aliens themselves are using the same tricks as their ships. They appear to be made of energy, but thermal scans show they're solid beings wearing some kind of enhancement suits." The Velthari fleet reached weapons range and opened fire. Beams of brilliant energy lanced toward the human ships, each shot looking like the wrath of angry gods. But the human crews were ready. "Evasive maneuvers," Junseo ordered. "All ships, remember what we learned. Pretty lights, dangerous weapons, but nothing we can't handle." The Defiance rolled to avoid a plasma blast that would have vaporized its forward section. Other human ships scattered, their captains using every trick they had learned in decades of fighting pirates and raiders. "Return fire," Junseo commanded. "Target their real hulls, not their light show." Human weapons struck the Velthari ships, and for the first time the aliens faced an enemy that wasn't intimidated by their appearance. The biological hulls could self-repair, but they could also be damaged. The divine facade flickered and sparked where human guns found their mark. "Sir," Communications Officer Yang called out, "the Velthari are requesting permission to board our ship. They say they want to accept our surrender in person." "Tell them they're welcome to try," Junseo replied. "And alert Security Chief Dong-hyun that we're about to have uninvited guests." In the security section, Chief Dong-hyun was already preparing his team. He was a short, stocky man with scars on his hands from too many boarding actions against pirates. His security officers were checking their equipment with the calm efficiency of people who had done this many times before. "Remember what Engineer Tae-jin told us," Dong-hyun said to his team. "These aliens use technology to make themselves look godlike. The EMP grenades should disrupt their systems and show us what they really look like. Chief, one of his officers asked, what if the EMP doesn't work? Then we shoot them until they stop glowing, Dong-hyun replied matter-of-factly. Gods or not, I've never met anyone who couldn't be reasoned with using a plasma rifle. The boarding began without warning. Velthari figures simply appeared throughout. The ship, phasing through walls like ghosts. They moved with otherworldly grace, their forms trailing light as they glided down corridors that should have been impossible for them to navigate. Mortals of this vessel, one of them announced, its voice echoing from invisible speakers. You will gather in your central area and prepare for judgment. Divine Celestial Kethmar will decide your fate based on the respect you show. Security. Teams deploy EMP devices on my mark. Dong-hyun's voice came over the intercom. 3, 2, 1, mark. The electromagnetic pulse grenades detonated throughout the ship simultaneously. Suddenly, the glowing divine beings stumbled and flickered. Their perfect movement became clumsy, their ethereal forms became solid, and their godlike appearance revealed itself as advanced technology. What stood in the corridors now were tall, pale aliens wearing sophisticated suits covered in small devices. Their skin was white as chalk, their eyes were large and dark, and without their technological enhancements, they looked fragile and confused. Well, well, Dong-hyun said, approaching the nearest Velthari with his rifle ready. Look what we have here. Turns out gods bleed after all. The Velthari that had called itself Kethmar stared at him in shock. This is impossible. You cannot touch us. You cannot see us as we truly are. We are divine beings. You're advanced aliens with good special effects, Dong-hyun corrected, and not nearly as advanced as you think. In the medical bay, Dr. Hae-won was treating a Velthari prisoner who had been injured when his suit malfunctioned. The alien lay on her examination table, no longer glowing, no longer ethereal, just another patient who needed medical attention. Fascinating. Biology, she muttered to herself as she worked. Enhanced nervous system, probably to interface with their technology. Longer lifespan than humans, but not immortal. Definitely not divine. The Velthari patient stared at her with wide eyes. You touch me, but I am a god. Lesser beings cannot touch gods. I'm a doctor, Hae-won said simply. I touch whoever needs medical attention. God, alien, or human, everybody bleeds the same color when you cut them. She continued her examination, noting the alien's enhanced organs and modified skeletal structure. Impressive biotechnology. Your people have clearly been modifying themselves for thousands of years. But that makes you very advanced aliens, not gods. But we have lived for millennia, the Velthari protested weakly. We have power over matter and energy. We transcend the limitations of mortal flesh. You have good medical technology and fancy tools, Hae-won corrected. I've seen humans do things that would look like magic to people from a few centuries ago. That doesn't make us gods either. Back on the bridge, Captain Jun Seo was interrogating the Velthari leader. Kethmar sat in a chair, his divine robes revealed a sophisticated fabric that projected holographic effects. Without his enhancements, he looked old and tired. How? Kethmar asked. How did you see through our divine nature? Every species recognizes our godhood immediately. Because we're humans, Jun Seo said. We've been dealing with people claiming to be gods for thousands of years. Kings who said they were chosen by heaven. Priests who claimed to speak for the divine. Leaders who demanded worship. We've gotten very good at spotting the difference between real power and a good magic show. But our technology is impressive, Junseo agreed. Very impressive. But it's still just technology, and humans have a saying. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. But the reverse is also true. Any magic that can be explained is just technology we don't understand yet. Lieutenant Yunji looked up from her console. Sir, I'm analyzing their equipment. The phase walking ability uses quantum field manipulation to temporarily shift their molecular structure. The energy projection is controlled plasma channeled through their suits. The apparent immortality comes from advanced nanotechnology that repairs cellular damage. All very clever, Junseo said to Kethmar, but nothing that breaks the laws of physics, nothing that requires divine power, just very advanced science used to impress primitive species. Kethmar slumped in his chair. But we are gods. We have guided lesser species to greatness. We have brought peace to the galaxy. You've conquered the galaxy by convincing people you're something you're not, Junseo corrected. That doesn't make you gods. That makes you very successful artists. The captain opened a channel to Admiral So Young. Admiral, this is Junseo. Mission accomplished. The Velthari aren't gods. They're just aliens with really good special effects and a talent for intimidating people who don't ask the right questions. Outstanding, Captain. How are they taking the revelation? Junseo looked at the defeated Velthari leader. Not well, Admiral. Turns out that when you base your entire civilization on being worshipped as gods, having someone prove you're not divine is pretty devastating. Good, came the Admiral's voice. Maybe now we can have an honest conversation about what they really want and what we're willing to give them. But as Junseo ended the transmission, he could see the rage building in Kethmar's eyes. The Velthari had spent millennia being worshipped as gods. Having that illusion shattered was not something they would accept quietly. The real war was just beginning. High Celestial Nyamoth stood in the command chamber of her flagship, her form blazing with fury. The other Velthari leaders gathered around her could feel the waves of rage radiating from their supreme commander. For the first time in millennia, their divine authority had been challenged. For the first time ever, it had been successfully questioned. They touched us, whispered divine Celestial Morgeth, still shaken from his capture aboard the human ship. They saw through our divine essence. They treated us like mere aliens. Impossible, hissed another. We are gods. We have been gods since before these humans crawled from their primitive world. Every species recognizes our divinity immediately. Nyamoth turned to face her council, her light burning so bright that several of the younger Velthari stepped back. The humans have committed the ultimate blasphemy. They have denied our godhood. They have stripped away our divine veils and dared to touch our sacred forms. She gestured, and a holographic display showed the battle recordings. Human ships dodging, divine lightning, human weapons striking sacred hulls, human soldiers capturing divine beings as if they were common criminals. Look at this! Nyamoth's voice shook the chamber. They analyze our divine power as if it were mere technology. They explain our miracles with their primitive science. They reduce our eternal majesty to what they call special effects. Perhaps, Morgeth said carefully, we underestimated them. Perhaps they require a different approach. They require punishment! Nyamoth's form flared. They require an example that will terrify every species in the galaxy back into proper worship. No one may question the gods and live." She turned to her tactical displays, showing the positions of Velthari fleets throughout the galaxy. "Send word to all divine armadas. Converge on the human system. Bring every ship, every weapon, every tool of divine wrath. We will make their sun go dark. We will turn their worlds to ash. We will show the galaxy what happens to those who deny the gods." Meanwhile, in human space, Captain Yujin led her destroyer squadron in hit-and-run attacks against the Velthari formation. Her ship, the Relentless, was one of the newer designs, built specifically for speed and maneuverability. "Target their lead ship," she ordered. "Full spread of missiles, then get us out of here." The missiles streaked toward the Velthari vessel, their warheads designed by engineer Tai Jin, specifically to disrupt alien shielding technology. The enemy ship's barriers flared and sparked as the weapons found their mark. "Direct hits," reported Tactical Officer Min Seok. "Their shields are down to 60%. "Excellent. All ships withdraw to rally point 7. Let's see if they follow us into the asteroid field." The human destroyers accelerated away from the Velthari fleet, deliberately, leading them through a field of space debris that would complicate targeting. The aliens followed, their divine fury making them careless. "Sir," Communications Officer Haya Jin called out, "the Velthari are broadcasting on all frequencies. They're very angry." Yujin smiled grimly. "Let me guess. More threats. About divine punishment?" "Yes, sir, but also something else. They're calling for reinforcements from across the galaxy. Every Velthari fleet is being ordered to converge on human space." "How many ships are we talking about?" "Unknown, sir, but the broadcasts suggest thousands, maybe tens of thousands." Yujin nodded. This was expected. The Velthari couldn't allow humans to prove they weren't gods. It would destroy their entire civilization, which was built on the worship and fear of other species. "Signal Admiral So Young. Tell her the hornet's nest is well and truly stirred up." In another part of the battle zone, pilot Subin was having the time of her life. Her fighter, one of the small single-person craft that could dance between capital ships, was proving to be the Velthari's worst nightmare. The aliens' psychic jamming technology, designed to disrupt computer systems and enhanced minds, had no effect on human pilots. Subin's brain was completely biological, unenhanced, and apparently immune to whatever mental interference the Velthari used. "This is Viper 2, she called over the radio. "I'm making another attack run on their command ship. Their point defense systems can't track me." She dove her fighter toward the massive Velthari vessel, weaving between energy beams that tried to swat her like an annoying insect. Her ship's weapons were small compared to the aliens' shields, but she wasn't trying to destroy the ship. She was trying to prove a point. "Missiles away," she announced, firing a spread of micro-warheads at the ship's sensor arrays. "Let's see how godlike they feel when they can't see us coming." The explosions were small, but they knocked out several of the alien ship's scanning systems. More importantly, they showed watching aliens throughout the galaxy that human fighters could strike divine vessels with impunity. "Viper 2, return to base," came Admiral So Young's voice. "You've made your point." "Copy that, Admiral. Heading home." As Subin's fighter streaked away from the alien fleet, she could see more Velthari ships arriving. The enemy was gathering their forces for what would clearly be a massive assault. But she wasn't worried. She had seen the fear in the alien, prisoners' eyes when their technology failed. She had seen their confusion when humans treated them as equals rather than gods. "Command, this is Viper 2, she reported. "The Velthari are definitely scared. Whatever they're planning, it's not coming from confidence. It's coming from desperation." Back on Earth, Engineer Tae-Jin was working around the clock in his laboratory. The initial success of his EMP weapons had given him new ideas, and he was building devices that would strip away more of the Velthari's technological advantages. "Dr. Boram," he called to the xenobiologist who was working at a nearby station, "what did you learn from the alien prisoners?" "Fascinating species," she replied without looking up from her microscope. "They've been enhancing themselves for thousands of years. Longer lifespans, improved physical capabilities, direct neural interfaces with their technology, but they're still organic beings with organic weaknesses, such as they're dependent on their enhancement suits. Without them, they're actually quite fragile. Their extended lifespans make them risk-averse, and their entire psychology is built around being worshipped. When that worship is removed, they become confused and disoriented." Tae-Jin grinned. "So they're powerful, but only as long as their technology works and people believe in them." "Exactly. Take away either one, and they're just another species with delusions of grandeur. Then let's make sure they lose both." Tae-Jin returned to his work, designing weapons that would not only disrupt Velthari technology, but broadcast the disruption across the galaxy. If other species could see that the gods could be made mortal, maybe they would start questioning their own surrender. Admiral So-Young stood in the command center, watching the tactical displays as more and more Velthari fleets converged on human space. The numbers were overwhelming. Even with all their advantages, humans were facing an enemy that outnumbered them thousands to one. "Admiral," asked Captain Minho, "do we have enough ships to hold them off?" "No," So-Young said honestly. "We don't have enough ships to win a conventional battle. But we're not fighting a conventional enemy. We're fighting an enemy whose entire power base depends on being seen as invincible gods." She turned to face her staff. "The Velthari are coming here with everything they have because they can't afford to lose to us. If humans can defeat gods, then the gods aren't really gods. Every species they've conquered will start asking questions they don't want to answer." "So what's the plan, Admiral?" asked General Chang-Su. "We don't just beat them," So-Young said. "We humiliate them. We make sure every species in the galaxy sees that the mighty Velthari can be defeated by mortals with the right attitude and the right weapons." She looked at the incoming fleet markers on her display. "They want to make an example of us. Instead, we're going to make an example of them. We're going to show the galaxy that gods can bleed, gods can lose, and gods can be proven wrong. And if we lose, then we lose fighting, not worshipping. And maybe that will be enough to inspire someone else to pick up where we left off." The Velthari armada approached human space like a wave of divine light, carrying the fury of insulted gods and the desperation of beings whose entire identity had been challenged. They expected to find humans cowering in fear, begging for mercy, ready to worship in exchange for their lives. Instead, they found humans preparing for war with the grim determination of a species that had never learned to stay down when knocked over. The battle for humanity's freedom was about to begin, and both sides knew that the winner would determine whether the galaxy knelt to gods or stood with mortals. The space around Earth filled with the light of approaching doom. Thousands of Velthari ships converged on the Sol system, their forms blazing like angry stars. Each vessel was a work of art, flowing lines and organic curves that spoke of divine beauty and eternal grace. They moved in perfect formation, a celestial armada that had never known defeat. Then Admiral So Young arrived with the human dreadnought Indomitable. Where the Velthari ships were elegant and beautiful, the Indomitable was brutal and functional. Its hull was angular black metal scarred with armor patches and weapon mounts. Gun turrets bristled from every surface, like the spines of some massive predator. It looked like exactly what it was, a machine built for the sole purpose of destroying other machines. "Admiral on deck," called out the bridge crew as So Young took her position in the command chair. "Status report," she ordered. "Velthari fleet is holding position at the edge of weapon range," reported Navigation Officer Jae Sung. "They appear to be waiting for something. Probably expecting us to surrender," So Young said. "How disappointing for them." Weapons Officer: "Chang Min, what's our firing solution?" Chang Min looked up from his console with a predator's smile. "All gun batteries ready, Admiral. Kinetic impactors loaded and targeted. Nuclear warheads armed and standing by. Railguns charged and ready to put holes in anything that doesn't dodge fast enough. Outstanding. Communications, open a channel to the Velthari fleet." The main screen lit up with the image of High Celestial Nyamoth. Even transmitted through space, her divine radiance was impressive. Her voice carried the weight of millennia when she spoke. "Mortals of Earth," she began, "you have committed the ultimate sin. You have denied the divine. You have touched the sacred. You have questioned the eternal. For this blasphemy, you will face judgment." "Judgment?" So Young interrupted. "From who? You? I've seen your technology, Nyamoth. Very impressive, very advanced, but nothing that breaks the laws of physics. You're not gods, you're just aliens with good special effects and an attitude problem." Nyamoth's form flared with rage. "You will learn respect, mortal. Behold the power of the divine." The Velthari fleet opened fire as one, sending thousands of energy beams toward the human ships. The attacks looked like the wrath of heaven itself, brilliant streams of destruction that should have vaporized anything in their path. The human fleet scattered like leaves in a storm, their captains using every evasive maneuver they had ever learned. Ships rolled, dove, and spun through space, their pilots treating the divine assault like just another weapons barrage to be avoided. "Return fire," So Young ordered calmly. "All ships full spread. Let's show them what mortal weapons can do." The human response was devastating in its simplicity. No elegant energy beams or graceful plasma bolts. Just kinetic impactors moving at significant fractions of light speed, nuclear warheads that turned space into miniature suns, and railgun projectiles that punched through anything in their path. Through pure momentum, the Velthari shields flared and sparked as human weapons found their targets. Their beautiful organic hulls cracked and bled strange fluids into vacuum. For the first time in their existence, the divine fleet was taking damage from mortals who refused to be impressed. "Impossible!" Nyamoth's voice crackled with disbelief. "Our shields are divine protection. Our hulls are blessed by eternal power." "Your shields are good technology," So Young replied, "and your hulls are advanced biological engineering. But my kinetic impactors don't care about your blessings. Newton's laws work the same on gods and mortals." Commander Nara led the first wave of boarding parties against the Velthari flagship. Her assault shuttles punched through the alien ships, defenses using brute force rather than elegant technology. Where the Velthari expected divine barriers to protect them, they found human marines with plasma cutters and shaped charges. "Breach in Sector 7, Nara reported, as her team cut through the ship's hull. "Proceeding to primary target." The Velthari crew they encountered were still wearing their divine enhancement suits, still glowing with inner light, still convinced of their godhood. They launched energy attacks that should have vaporized the human invaders, only to watch in shock as the Marines' simple kinetic barriers deflected their divine weapons. "How?" one of the aliens asked as Nara's team captured their command center. "How do you resist divine power?" "Easy," Nara replied, checking her rifle's ammunition counter. "We don't believe in it. Your energy weapons are impressive, but they're still just weapons. Our armor is designed to stop weapons." The Velthari stared at her in confusion. "But we are gods. You are mortals. The divine cannot be defeated by the mundane." "Then you've got a problem," Nara said, "because we're beating you with mundane weapons fired by mortal soldiers. Maybe it's time to update your theology." Back on the Indomitable, Weapons Officer Chang Min was having the time of his career. The Velthari ships were powerful and well-defended, but they were designed to intimidate primitive species, not fight a peer-level military force. "Target their command ship," he called to his gun crews. "Full nuclear spread, followed by kinetic impactors." The warheads detonated against the Velthari flagship's shields in a series of brilliant explosions. The divine barriers held, but they flickered and weakened with each impact. Then the kinetic impactors arrived, simple chunks of dense metal moving at tremendous speed. The first projectile punched through the weakened shields like they weren't there. The second shattered a section of the ship's hull. The third went straight through the vessel from bow to stern, leaving a perfectly round hole that vented atmosphere and fluids into space. "Direct hit," Chang Min reported with satisfaction. "Their flagship is venting atmosphere and showing power fluctuations. Shall I finish them off?" "Negative," So Young said. "Let them live to tell the tale. But target their weapon systems. I want them defenseless, not dead." The battle raged across the Sol system as more human ships arrived to join the fight. Each vessel was built like the Indomitable, functional, brutal, and designed by a species that had been fighting wars since before they reached the stars. The Velthari found themselves facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered. These humans didn't worship their attackers' power or fear their divine wrath. They analyzed the Velthari weapons, developed countermeasures, and fought back with the grim efficiency of professional soldiers. "Admiral," reported Tactical Officer Lee from his station, "Velthari casualties are mounting. Several of their ships are withdrawing from the battle." "Let them go," So Young said, "but make sure they're broadcasting what happened here. I want every species in the galaxy to see this." Communications Officer Park looked up from his console. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender requests from multiple Velthari vessels. They're asking for terms." "Tell them the terms are simple," So Young replied. "Stop claiming to be gods. Stop demanding worship. Start treating other species as equals. Do that and we can talk." On the main screen, High Celestial Nyamoth's image flickered as her ship's systems failed around her. Her divine radiance was dim now, interrupted by sparks and electrical failures. "This cannot be," she whispered. "We are eternal. We are divine. We cannot be defeated by mortals." "You just were," So Young said simply. "Accept it, learn from it, and maybe we can find a way to coexist. But if you keep insisting you're gods, we'll keep proving you wrong." The Admiral opened a channel to all human ships. "All vessels, this is Admiral So Young. The enemy is broken. Cease fire and prepare for cleanup operations." And remember, people, what we just proved here isn't that humans are better than the Velthari. It's that nobody deserves to be worshipped just because they have advanced technology. She looked at the damaged Velthari fleet, their beautiful ships scarred and broken by human weapons. Today we showed the galaxy that gods can bleed. Tomorrow, maybe other species will remember that they don't have to kneel to anyone. The battle was over, but the real victory was just beginning. Across the galaxy, species that had surrendered to the Velthari were receiving recordings of the battle. For the first time in millennia, they were seeing their gods defeated by mortals who simply refused to be impressed. The age of divine rule was ending. The age of questioning had begun. High Celestial Nyamoth stood alone on the observation deck of her damaged flagship, staring out at the scattered remains of her divine armada. Dozens of Velthari ships drifted powerless in space, their elegant hulls cracked and bleeding strange fluids. Others had withdrawn completely, their crews no longer willing to face the mortal weapons that punched through divine shields like they were made of paper. For thousands of years, she had been worshipped across the galaxy. Entire civilizations had built temples in her honor, offered prayers to her name, and trembled at the mention of her divine wrath. Now she watched human ships moving through the debris field, their ugly, functional vessels rescuing Velthari, survivors with the same casual efficiency they might use to collect space junk. "My lady!" came a voice behind her. Divine Celestial Morgeth approached, his own divine radiance flickering with power failures. "The human admiral is requesting a meeting. She wishes to discuss terms." Terms. Nyamoth's voice was bitter, as void ice. "Mortals, do not dictate terms to gods." "Perhaps," Morgeth said carefully, "it is time to reconsider our divine nature. The humans have proven that our power has limits." Nyamoth turned to face him, her form blazing with the fury of a dying star. "Never! I will not accept this blasphemy. If our current forms cannot command the respect we deserve, then I will show them true divinity." She moved to the center of the chamber, where her ship's most advanced systems waited. These were technologies that the Velthari had never shared. With their subjects' quantum manipulation devices that could reshape matter and energy at the fundamental level. "My lady, what are you doing?" Morgeth asked, backing away in alarm. "I am becoming what I have always claimed to be," Nyamoth replied, "a being of pure energy, a true god, unbound by mortal limitations." Meanwhile, Captain Hyunwoo commanded the human battlecruiser Prometheus as it approached the Velthari flagship. His ship was one of the newer designs, equipped with experimental weapons developed specifically for this war. "Sir," reported Sensor Officer Kim, "I'm detecting massive energy fluctuations from the alien command ship. Something big is happening over there." "Define big," Hyunwoo said. "The energy readings are off the scale. It looks like they're attempting some kind of matter conversion process." Dr. Boram's voice came over the communications system from her laboratory aboard the ship. "Captain, I've been monitoring Velthari technology throughout this battle. If I'm reading these energy signatures correctly, they're trying to convert organic matter into pure energy. It's theoretically possible, but incredibly dangerous." "Dangerous how?" "If the process goes wrong, it could destabilize the quantum structure of everything within several thousand kilometers." "And if it goes right?" She paused. "If it goes right, we might be facing an enemy that really is made of pure energy." Hyunwoo nodded grimly. "Then we'd better make sure it goes wrong. Dr. Boram, what do you recommend?" I've been working on a quantum disruptor based on our analysis of Velthari technology. It should interfere with their energy manipulation systems. But, Captain, it's never been tested on anything this scale. Will it work? Probably, maybe. I hope so. Good enough for me. Load the quantum disruptor and prepare for firing. Back on the Velthari flagship, Nyamoth stepped into the conversion chamber as warning alarms blared throughout the ship. Her crew watched in terror as their supreme leader began the process of transcending physical form. Energy coursed through her body as the quantum manipulators began breaking down her molecular structure. Her physical form started to dissolve, replaced by patterns of pure light and force. For a moment, it looked like she was succeeding. "Behold!" her voice echoed, "from everywhere and nowhere. I am become divine. I am energy eternal. I am the power that moves stars." Her transformed essence expanded beyond the chamber, flowing through the ship's corridors like liquid lightning. Velthari crew members fell to their knees as true divine presence washed over them. This was what they had always claimed to be, gods made manifest. But then the Prometheus fired its quantum disruptor. Lieutenant Wu Siok monitored the weapon's effects from his station. Direct hit. The disruptor beam is interfering with their quantum field. Energy patterns are becoming unstable. On the Velthari ship, Nyamoth's transcendence suddenly turned into a nightmare. The carefully controlled energy patterns that maintained her divine form began to collapse. The quantum fields that held her consciousness together started to fray. "No!" her voice screamed across multiple dimensions. "I am eternal! I am divine! I cannot be unmade by mortal weapons!" But the disruptor beam continued its work, stripping away the technological enhancements that allowed her transformation. Layer by layer, the quantum manipulators failed. System by system, the energy converters shut down. And slowly, inevitably, the being who had claimed to be a god was revealed for what she truly was. Nyamoth collapsed onto the deck of her ship, her physical form restored, but changed. The energy conversion process had aged her terribly. Her skin was pale and wrinkled, her hair white as starlight, her eyes clouded with the weight of millennia. Without her technological enhancements, she looked exactly like what she was, an ancient alien who had lived far longer than her species was meant to live. "Impossible," she whispered, her voice now weak and mortal. "I am Nyamoth the Eternal. I am the bringer of light. I am—" "You're a very old alien who's been using advanced technology to pretend to be a god," came a voice from the chamber entrance. Captain Hyunwoo stood there with a squad of human marines, their weapons ready but not aimed. Behind them, Dr. Boram carried a medical scanner and a look of scientific curiosity. "How did you board our ship?" Morgeth demanded. "Our defenses are impenetrable." "Turns out that when you're busy trying to turn your leader into an energy being, you forget to watch the airlocks," Hyunwoo said. "Also, your shields are down, and your weapons are offline." He approached the fallen Nyamoth, studying her with the same calm expression he might use to examine a broken machine. "So this is what a god looks like when you strip away all the special effects." Dr. Boram ran her scanner over the ancient Velthari. "Fascinating. Her cellular structure shows signs of massive artificial enhancement. Extended lifespan, enhanced neural capacity, improved physical capabilities. But underneath all the modifications, she's just another organic being." "Blasphemy," Nyamoth whispered. "I am divine. I have existed since before your son was born. You've existed for a long time because your people developed good medical technology," Boram corrected. "Your omniscience comes from a vast computer network. Your divine powers are just sophisticated tools. Take away the technology, and you're mortal like the rest of us. Hunwoo activated his communicator. Admiral, So Young, this is Captain Hyun Woo. Mission accomplished. The Velthari Supreme Leader has been revealed as she truly is, mortal, aging, and entirely dependent on technology for her divine appearance. Outstanding, Captain. Are you broadcasting this? On all frequencies, Admiral. Every species in the galaxy is seeing this. Across the galaxy, the images went out on every communication channel. Species that had worshipped the Velthari for thousands of years watched in shock as their gods were revealed as mortals. The psychological impact was devastating. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, the granite people stopped carving statues and started asking questions. Why had they given up their independence to beings who were no more divine than they were? In the gas clouds of the Veil Nebula, the Whisper folk ceased their songs of praise and began composing ballads of rebellion. If humans could defeat gods, perhaps gods were not as powerful as they claimed. On 1,000 worlds across the galaxy, species that had surrendered without a fight began to remember what freedom felt like. Back on the Velthari flagship, Nyamoth struggled to sit up, her ancient body shaking with exhaustion and defeat. "You have doomed the galaxy," she said weakly. "Without our guidance, the lesser species will destroy themselves." "Maybe," Hyunwoo said. "Or maybe they'll learn to guide themselves. Maybe they'll discover that they don't need gods to tell them how to live." He looked around at the assembled Velthari crew, all of them staring at their fallen leader with expressions of shock and disbelief. "Your choice now is simple. You can keep claiming to be gods and we'll keep proving you wrong. Or you can join the galactic community as equals and see what you can accomplish when people follow you because they want to, not because they're afraid of you." Dr. Boram helped Nyamoth to her feet, supporting the ancient alien with the same care she would show any patient. "Your technology is impressive," she said. "Your longevity research alone could benefit millions of species, but you'll never fulfill that potential as long as you're pretending to be something you're not." Nyamoth looked at the human doctor with confusion. "You help me? But I am your enemy. I tried to destroy your species." "You're a patient who needs medical attention," Boram said simply. "Enemy or not, I took an oath to help people who are hurt." For the first time in millennia, Nyamoth encountered something her advanced civilization had forgotten. Simple compassion offered without expectation of worship or reward. It was, perhaps, more divine than 3 months after the Battle of Seoul. Ambassador Ji-Hai stood before the largest gathering of alien species in galactic history. The Great Assembly had been called on the neutral world of Haven's Rest, and representatives from over 2,000 civilizations filled the vast amphitheater. For the first time in millennia, they had come not to worship but to talk as equals. The Velthari sat in a special section, no longer glowing with divine light. Their enhancement suits had been removed, revealing them as pale ancient beings, who looked fragile without their technological augmentation. Former High Celestial Nyamoth sat among them, her white hair tied back simply, wearing plain robes instead of divine vestments. "People of the galaxy," Ji-Hai began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems, "we gather here today not as gods and mortals, not as rulers and subjects, but as species sharing the same stars." A murmur went through the assembled aliens. Many of them were still adjusting to the idea that they didn't need divine permission to speak or think or question. For thousands of years, Jihai continued, you were told that advanced technology and long lifespans made certain beings divine. You were told that power gave someone the right to demand worship. You were told that questioning authority was blasphemy. She gestured to the human delegation, a small group compared to the vast alien assembly. Humans are here to tell you something different. We're here to say that no one deserves worship simply because they're powerful. We're here to say that the only authority worth respecting is authority that earns respect through service, not fear. Representative Zeth of the Granite People stood up, his rocky form shifting with nervous energy. Human ambassador, your species has destroyed our gods. What do you offer in their place? We don't offer anything to replace them, Jihai said. We offer you the chance to replace them yourselves, to build governments that serve their people instead of demanding worship, to develop technology that helps everyone instead of creating artificial divine castes. In the months since the Battle of Sol, engineer Tae Jin had been busier than ever. His workshops on Earth and human colonies were working around the clock, not building weapons, but sharing technology. The quantum disruptors that had stripped away Velthari enhancements were being modified into medical scanners. The EMP devices that had revealed false gods were being turned into tools for studying alien technology. The key, he explained to a group of whisper folk engineers, is understanding that any technology can be analyzed, replicated, and improved upon. The Velthari made you think their tools were divine mysteries. They're not. They're just very advanced engineering. The whisper folk, beings of living gas who communicated through harmonic frequencies, resonated with excitement as they examined human designs. For the first time in their history, they were learning to build instead of just worship. On the former Velthari capital world of Luminous Prime, Dr. Bo-Ram had established a research station that was part laboratory, part hospital, and part school. Aliens from across the galaxy came to learn how to analyze the technology they had once feared to question. The biological enhancements that made the Velthari appear immortal are actually quite simple in principle, she explained to a mixed group of alien scientists. Extended telomeres, enhanced cellular repair mechanisms, optimized organ function. With the right knowledge, any species could develop similar improvements. A young Zephyrian researcher raised one of her forearms. Dr. Bo-Ram, why do humans share this knowledge freely? Do you not wish to rule as the Velthari did? Bo-Ram smiled. Because ruling people who don't want to be ruled is exhausting and pointless. We'd rather have allies than subjects. Partners achieve more than slaves ever can. The Velthari themselves were slowly adapting to their new status. Without their divine enhancements, they were forced to interact with other species as equals. For the first time in millennia, some found the experience terrifying. Others discovered it was liberating. Former divine celestial Morgeth now worked alongside human engineers, sharing Velthari biotechnology in exchange for learning human manufacturing techniques. His first week without enhancement suits had been humiliating, but he was beginning to appreciate the simple pleasure of accomplishing something through his own efforts, rather than divine authority. It is strange, he told engineer Tae Jin during one of their working sessions, to be valued for knowledge rather than feared for power. Knowledge lasts longer than fear, Tae Jin replied, adjusting a biological synthesizer. Fear makes people obey until they find something scarier. Knowledge makes them want to work with you because you're useful. Not all Velthari accepted the new reality. Several dozen had retreated to the Outer Rim territories, still claiming divine status and demanding worship from any species desperate enough to listen. But their numbers were small, and their influence was fading as more species learned to see through technological mystique. Former High Celestial Nyamoth had perhaps changed the most. Working with Dr. Bo-Ram in the medical research station, she was discovering that healing people was more satisfying than ruling them. Her knowledge of Velthari biotechnology, combined with human medical ethics, was producing treatments that helped rather than controlled. "I spent 10,000 years being worshipped," she told Dr. Bo-Ram one day as they worked on a cure for a genetic disorder that affected the Granite people. "But I think this is the first time I've actually helped anyone." "Power over people isn't the same as power to help people," Bo-Ram agreed. "One makes you a tyrant. The other makes you a healer." Back at the Great Assembly, representatives from species across the galaxy were sharing their experiences of life after divine rule. The results were mixed, but promising. The Crystal Singers of Harmonic Seventh had overthrown their Velthari-appointed priests and established a democratic council. The Void Swimmers of the Dark Nebula had abandoned their temples and built schools instead. The machine builders of Cog World had stopped offering their mechanical creations as divine tribute and started selling them as trade goods. Not every transition was smooth. Several worlds had descended into civil war as different factions argued over how to govern themselves. Others had fallen to new tyrants who promised divine protection in exchange for absolute loyalty. But for every failure, there were three successes: species learning to stand on their own feet after millennia of kneeling. "Change is never easy," Ambassador G. High told the assembly, "but it's necessary. You cannot grow while you're kneeling. You cannot learn while you're worshiping. You cannot become what you're capable of becoming while someone else claims to, be divine." Representative Korth of the Flame Dancers asked, "What if we make mistakes? What if we choose wrong leaders or bad policies?" "Then you'll learn from your mistakes and choose better next time," G. High replied. "That's what free people do. They make mistakes, they learn, they improve. It's messier than divine rule, but it's also more honest." Admiral So Young had been promoted to head of the new Galactic Defense Initiative, a voluntary organization dedicated to protecting species from those who would claim divine authority over them. Her headquarters orbited Haven's Rest, and her fleets were crewed by volunteers from dozens of species who had learned that freedom was worth fighting for. "Our mission is simple," she explained to her mixed species staff. "We don't rule anyone. We don't demand worship. We don't claim to know what's best for other people. We just make sure that nobody else gets to claim those things either." Captain Hyan Wu, now commanding the new battleship Liberator, patrolled the outer systems where the remnant Velthari still tried to establish divine kingdoms. His ship's crew included humans, reformed Velthari, granite warriors, and whisperfolk navigators, all working together to prove that cooperation worked better than worship. "Contact on long-range sensors," reported Lieutenant Yunji, who had stayed with Hyun-woo through his promotion. "It's a Velthari holdout group. They're demanding tribute from the local mining colony." "Standard response?" asked Commander Nara, who now served as Hyun-woo's first officer. "Standard response," he confirmed. "Show them what their divine powers look like against people who aren't impressed." The liberation was swift and efficient. The wannabe gods found their technology disrupted, their claims of divinity ignored, and their threats answered with superior firepower operated by beings who had never learned to kneel. As the months passed, the galaxy began to change in ways nobody had expected. Without the Velthari demanding tribute and suppressing development, species that had been stagnant for millennia began to innovate again. Trade networks that had been controlled by divine decree became free markets. Art, science, and philosophy flourished as beings who had been forced to think only approved thoughts suddenly discovered the joy of original ideas. The humans found themselves in an unexpected position. Species across the galaxy looked to them, not as new gods, but as teachers and allies. Earth became a center of learning, where aliens came to study human concepts like democracy, scientific method, and individual rights.